I wake up every morning at 5:40. Not because I have to. Those days are long gone. No factory whistles, no supervisors. No deadlines except the quiet ticking of the kitchen clock that still runs 5 minutes fast because my wife, Helen, insisted it helped us stay ahead of life. She's been gone 6 years. The clock is still wrong. I sit on the edge of my bed for a moment, letting my knees remember their job. The floor is cold. October creeping into November does that, especially in an old house with original hardwood and insulation that belongs in a museum. The coffee machine clicks on at exactly 5:45. I set it the night before. 2 scoops of Colombian, 1 cracked mug, no sugar. Helen used to say I drank coffee like I distrusted sweetness. Maybe she was right. That morning, November 18, 2024, 6:02 a.m., my phone buzzed on the table. Not a call. A message from Daniel. My son doesn't call anymore unless something is broken, overdue, or expensive. I wiped my hands on a dish towel, sat down, and opened the message. Dad, quick heads up. We're keeping Thanksgiving small this year. Just Isabella's parents and a couple friends. It might be better if you sit this one out. Less stress for everyone. Less stress. I read it twice. Then a third time, slower. The refrigerator hummed behind me, somewhere outside. A garbage truck groaned and clanked like an old man refusing to die. I typed a response. Deleted it. Typed again. I understand. Sent at 6:07 a.m. That was the entire exchange. 72 years of life. 41 years of fatherhood. Reduced to 11 words and a polite dismissal. I took a sip of coffee. It had already gone slightly bitter. Funny thing about disappointment at my age, it doesn't explode anymore. It settles. Like dust. Quiet, persistent, getting into everything. I stood up, walked to the window, and looked out at the backyard. The oak tree Helen loved was nearly bare. Leaves scattered across the grass in uneven patches. I hadn't raked yet. I'd been busy. Very busy, as it turns out, paying my son's life. At 6:15, I opened the drawer by the phone. Inside, neatly stacked, were envelopes and printed statements. I don't trust everything being online. Paper has weight. Paper doesn't disappear when someone changes a password. Top of the stack. First National Bank mortgage statement. Account ending in 4421. Property address. 18 Willow Creek Drive. Daniel's house. Monthly payment. $3,200.47. Due date. 1st of every month. Paid by automatic transfer. From my account. I ran my thumb along the edge of the paper. $3,200.47. Every month. For 4 years and 8 months. I remember the exact day it started. March 3rd, 2020.2:18 p.m. I was sitting in this same kitchen when Daniel called. Dad, the bank approved us, but the rate is brutal. We're stretched thin already. Just for a while. Until I get that promotion. Just for a while. I wrote down the numbers back then too. Old habit. Engineering teaches you that numbers tell the truth even when people don't. $3,200.47 times 56 months. I didn't need a calculator, but I used one anyway. $179,226.32. I stared at the number. Then I laughed. Not loud. Just a short, dry sound that surprised even me. Less stress. I repeated to the empty kitchen. At 7:10, I fried 2 eggs in the same pan I've used for 15 years. The handle is slightly loose. I keep meaning to fix it, but it hasn't failed yet, so we have an understanding. Toast, butter, half a tomato with salt. Routine is a kind of armor. It keeps things from getting inside you too quickly. At 8:00, I turned on the small radio by the window. AM station. News. Voices talking about inflation, interest rates, housing markets. Housing markets. I looked again at the statement on the table. Willow Creek Drive. For bedrooms. 2-car garage. Open plan kitchen Isabella insisted on. I remember that kitchen. Granite countertops are non-negotiable, she'd said. Standing in the showroom, running her hand across a slab like she was choosing jewelry. Daniel had laughed nervously. We'll figure it out. I paid the down payment too. $85,000 wired on February 14th, 2020. Valentine's Day. I remember thinking Helen would have called that poetic in a tragic sort of way. By 9:30, the house felt too quiet. I picked up my phone, scrolled through contacts, stopped at Daniel's name, didn't call. Instead, I opened my banking app. The screen brightness hit my eyes harder than it should have. Checking account, $412,870.11. Savings, $683,200.55. Retirement fund, separate. Enough to live comfortably. Enough to help. Enough, apparently, to be inconvenient. I navigated to scheduled transfers. There it was. Recurring payment. Mortgage 4421. Amount, $3,200.47. Next payment, December 1st, 2024. Status active. My finger hovered over the screen. It's a strange moment, realizing that something you've been doing out of love has quietly turned into something expected, required, invisible, like electricity in the walls. No one thinks it. They only notice when it stops. I didn't press anything yet. Instead, I locked the phone and set it down. At 11:45, my phone rang. Daniel, right on schedule. Not for Thanksgiving. Not for conversation. For maintenance. Hey, Dad, he said, voice distracted. I could hear movement in the background. Probably his car, Bluetooth echo. Quick question. Did the mortgage clear this month? Isabella's checking accounts, and... Yes, I said. A pause. Okay, good. She gets anxious about these things. You know how she is? I smiled. He couldn't see it. Oh, I know exactly how she is. Right. Anyway, thanks again, Dad. Really? We'll figure out Thanksgiving soon. Maybe do something after. After. Of course, I said. After. Another pause. Shorter this time. All right, I gotta run. Talk later. The line clicked dead. I sat there for a long moment. Phone still in my hand. Then I looked at the clock. 11:52 a.m. I stood up slowly, walked back to the table, and picked up the mortgage statement again. The paper felt different now. Lighter somehow? Or maybe I was... At 12:03 p.m., I unlocked my phone, opened the banking app, navigated to scheduled transfers. And this time, my finger didn't hesitate. If you believe older voices still matter, support this channel with a like and a subscription. At 12:03 p.m., I didn't press cancel. Not yet. People imagine decisions like this as sudden, a spark, a moment of righteous anger. That's not how it works. Real decisions, the ones that actually change lives, are slow, methodical. They walk around the problem, sit with it, measure it from all sides like a carpenter checking angles, before making a cut that cannot be undone. I set the phone down again. If I was going to do this, I wanted to understand exactly what this was. At 12:40 p.m., I pulled out the old metal box from the bottom cabinet. It used to hold Helen's recipes, handwritten cards, stained with oil and flour. After she passed, I moved those upstairs and replaced them with something far less comforting. Documents, bank statements, wire confirmations, loan agreements, copies of checks, a life translated into paper. I laid everything out across the table. The kitchen smelled faintly of fried eggs and cold coffee. The radio kept talking about interest rates climbing another quarter point. Timing, as always, had a sense of humor. The first document I picked up was a wire transfer. February 14th, 2020, 9:12 a.m. Outgoing wire, $85,000. Recipient, Willow Creek Title Services, LLC. I remember standing in line at the bank that morning. Valentine's Day. The teller had wished me a good one. Doing anything special? She asked. Yes, I said. Helping my son buy a house. She smiled like that was the best answer in the world. I folded the paper and set it aside. Next, a series of smaller transfers. March 2020, $5,000. April 2020, $7,500. June 2020, $3,200.47. First mortgage payment. I paused there. June. That was faster than I remembered. I flipped through more pages. The pattern became clear, like a heartbeat you can't unhear once you notice it. Mortgage, utilities, temporary help, short-term support, just until things stabilize. Each one had a note attached, not in writing, but in memory. Dad, the HVAC system went out. It's $6,800. We don't have that kind of cash right now. Dad, Isabella's car needs repairs. It's just bad timing. Dad, daycare costs are insane. You have no idea. No, I thought, looking at the numbers. I had every idea. At 1:25 p.m., I added everything up. Not just the mortgage. Everything. I wrote it down on a legal pad, the way I used to at work. Down payment. $85,000.00 mortgage payments. 56 months, $179. 226.32 additional transfers. 2020 to 2024, $94,780. I double-checked the math. Then I underlined the total. $359,006.32. I leaned back in my chair. $359,000. I said it out loud once just to hear how it sounded in the room. It didn't sound like love. It sounded like a contract I never agreed to. At 2:10 p.m., I went upstairs. The bedroom still looked the same. Helen's side of the bed, untouched except for the occasional dusting. Her blue robe hanging behind the door. I sat on the edge of the mattress. You would have seen this earlier, I said quietly. She always did. Helen had a way of noticing things before they fully existed. Small shifts in tone. A look that lasted half a second too long. The difference between gratitude and expectation. They're getting used to it, she told me once. That was back in 2021, after I'd covered Daniel's credit card debt. $12,400. They're just going through a rough patch, I'd replied. Helen had nodded, but her eyes said something else. A rough patch shouldn't last longer than a season. It had been 4 years. By 3:00 p.m., I was back in the kitchen. The sun had shifted, casting long shadows across the table. Papers everywhere. Numbers staring back at me like witnesses. I picked up my phone again. Opened the banking app. This time, I didn't go straight to the mortgage. I checked something else. Joint access accounts. There it was. Daniel still had viewing access to one of my secondary accounts. Not control, I wasn't that careless, but visibility, balance. $148,220. Enough for him to know there was always something there. Enough to assume the well never ran dry. I removed his access in 3 taps. No hesitation. No announcement. The screen asked, "Are you sure?" "Yes," I muttered. "I'm sure." At 3:22 p.m., my phone buzzed again. A message this time. From Isabella. "Hi, just checking. The mortgage went through, right?" Bank app is being weird again, faced with rolling eyes. I stared at the message. No greeting beyond obligation. No mention of Thanksgiving. No acknowledgement of the morning. Just a transaction. I typed a response. Stopped. Deleted it. Typed again. "It's handled." Sent. Technically true. Still handled. At 4:05 p.m., I poured myself another cup of coffee. This one I let sit too long on purpose, until it turned sharp and unpleasant. Seemed appropriate. I walked back to the table, sat down, and looked at the line again. Recurring payment. $3,200.47. December 1st. 13 days away. 13 days of silence, pretending everything was normal. Or, I tapped the entry. Options open. Edit. Pause. Cancel transfer. 3 choices. 3 versions of the future. Edit meant negotiation. Adjustment. Weakness dressed as compromise. Pause meant delay. Hope that something might fix itself. Cancel. Cancel meant clarity. At 4:11 p.m., I pressed cancel transfer. The screen didn't react immediately. Just a small spinning circle, like it needed a moment to consider the weight of what I'd done. Then, recurring payment canceled successfully. No fireworks. No dramatic music. Just a quiet confirmation. I exhaled slowly. Something inside me, something tight and coiled for years, loosened just a fraction. Not relief. Not yet. But something close. At 5:30 p.m., the house grew darker. I didn't turn on the lights right away. I sat there in the dim kitchen, surrounded by numbers, by evidence, by a life that suddenly made more sense than it had that morning. My phone stayed silent. No calls. No messages. Of course not. The system hadn't failed yet. The lights were still on. The heat still worked. The illusion was intact. For now, I folded the documents carefully, one by one, and placed them back into the metal box. Except for one, the mortgage statement. That I left on the table, front and center, where I could see it. where it could finally tell the truth without interruption. Outside, the wind picked up, dragging dry leaves across the yard in uneven circles. I watched them for a while. Funny thing about removing support. Everything looks stable right up until the moment it isn't. And I knew exactly when that moment would come. December 1st. The thing about systems is this. They don't fail loudly at first. They hesitate. They stall. They send polite notifications. December 1st, 2024, fell on a Sunday. I remember because I woke up at 5:40 as always, and for a moment, just a brief, almost merciful moment, I forgot what day it was. The coffee machine clicked on. The clock still ran 5 minutes fast. The world on the surface remained exactly the same. By 7:15 a.m., I was sitting at the kitchen table with my mug, watching the pale winter light creep across the yard. Frost clung to the edges of the grass. The oak tree stood bare now. No leaves left to pretend anything was alive. I checked my phone. No messages. Of course not. Mortgage payments don't bounce instantly. Banks have their own rhythm, slower, bureaucratic, almost polite in the way they deliver bad news. At 9:03 a.m., I received the first notification. First National Bank alert. Scheduled payment of $3,200.47 was not processed. Please review your account settings. I stared at the message. Short, neutral, almost indifferent. I took a sip of coffee. Not processed, I repeated quietly. That was one way to put it. By 10:30 a.m., I had already cleaned the kitchen, wiped down the counters twice, and reorganized the drawer with the utensils for no reason other than I needed something to do with my hands. Waiting is a strange kind of work. At 11:12 a.m., my phone rang. Daniel. I let it ring twice, 3 times. Answered on the 4th. Dad, he said. And there was something new in his voice. Not panic yet, just confusion. Hey, quick thing. Did something change with the mortgage payment? I leaned back in my chair. What do you mean? It didn't go through this morning, he said. I could hear movement pacing maybe. A door opening and closing. The bank app says processing error or something like that. Isabella's freaking out a little. A little. I pictured her standing in that open-plan kitchen, phone in hand, eyebrows tight, voice already sharp. I see, I said. So I just wanted to check if maybe you switched accounts or... No, I interrupted gently. I didn't switch accounts. A pause. Okay, so what happened? I looked at the mortgage statement still lying on the table. The paper had curled slightly at the corners. I stopped the payment. Silence. Not the kind filled with static or background noise. The kind that lands heavy. What? Daniel said finally. I canceled the recurring transfer on November 18th. I said. Calm. Even. The way you state a fact that doesn't require interpretation. Another pause. Longer this time. You canceled it, he repeated, like the words didn't quite fit together. Yes, Dad, there has to be some mistake. There isn't. His breathing changed. Faster now. Okay, hold on, he said, voice tightening. Why would you do that? We rely on that payment. There it was. Not thank you. Not we appreciate it. We rely on it. I nodded to myself. I'm aware, I said. Then why? You told me I wasn't welcome for Thanksgiving, I said, cutting through a sentence like a clean line. Silence again. Different this time. Defensive. Dad, that has nothing to do with this. Doesn't it? It was just one dinner, he snapped. We were trying to keep things simple. Isabella's parents. I understand, I said. Less stress for everyone. He exhaled sharply. You're twisting this. No, I said. I'm clarifying it. At 11:18 a.m., the conversation shifted. You can feel those moments when someone realizes the ground isn't where they thought it was. Dad, Daniel said, slower now, more careful. Look, if this is about Thanksgiving, we can figure something out. You can come. It's not a big deal. Not a big deal. I almost smiled. No, I said, that won't be necessary. Then what do you want? He asked, frustration bleeding through. Because canceling the mortgage isn't a small thing. That's $3,200. We have obligations. I know exactly how much it is, I said. I've been paying it for 56 months. He didn't respond, so I continued. $179 to $26.32 in mortgage payments, I said. Another $85,000 for the down payment, and roughly $94,000 in additional support. I paused. That's $359,000, Daniel. The number hung between us. Concrete. Undeniable. I never kept track like that, he muttered. I did. In the background, I heard Isabella's voice. Is that him? What's going on? Muffled, sharp, impatient. Daniel covered the phone for a second, whispered something I couldn't make out. Then he came back. Okay, he said, forcing calm. We appreciate everything you've done, obviously, but this isn't how you handle it. How would you suggest I handle it? You talk to me, he said. You don't just pull the rug out from under us. I looked down at the statement again. Interesting choice of words. What's that supposed to mean? It means, I said slowly, that I've been holding the rug in place for years while you arrange the furniture. That's not fair. No, I agreed. It isn't. At 11:26 a.m., the second voice joined fully. Isabella, put me on speaker, she said, not bothering to lower her voice. A rustle, a click. Mr. Carter, she began, her tone polished but tight around the edges. I think there's been a misunderstanding here. I closed my eyes briefly. Go on. The mortgage payment is a financial commitment, she said. We structured our budget around it. You can't just withdraw support without notice. I gave you 13 days. That's not notice, she snapped. That's sabotage. There it was. Not disappointment, not hurt, accusation. I let a small silence settle before answering. No, I said. Sabotage would have been canceling it on November 30th. At 11:29 a.m., everything sharpened. You're putting us in a very difficult position, Isabella continued. We have bills, we have responsibilities. So do I said. You're retired, she replied quickly. You don't have the same financial pressures. For a moment, just a moment, something hot flickered in my chest. Not anger, something cleaner. Isabella, I said, do you know how much is in my checking account right now? A pause. No, and it's not relevant. $412,870, I said. And do you know how long that lasts if I continue paying your mortgage indefinitely? Silence. I'm not an income stream, I said. I'm a person. When you decided was optional at Thanksgiving. At 11:34 a.m., Daniel spoke again. Softer now. Dad, we didn't mean it like that. No, I said. And I did. That was the problem. They didn't mean anything at all. The call ended at 11:41 a.m. No resolution. No apology. Just a quiet, strained, we'll talk later. I set the phone down. The house was silent again, but it felt different now. Lighter. Like a structure that had finally lost the weight it was never meant to carry. Outside, the wind had picked up again, pushing the last of the leaves against the fence line. I watched them gather there, stuck, restless, waiting for something to change. Inside, for the first time in years, nothing was waiting on me. And somewhere 20 minutes away on Willow Creek Drive, a system had begun to fail. So, politely, but inevitably, by December 3rd, the tone had changed. Not dramatically, not all at once, but enough. The first sign wasn't a phone call. It was an email. Subject line, urgent, mortgage, delinquency notice. Forwarded by Daniel at 8:14 a.m. No message, just the document attached. I opened it slowly, already knowing what it would say. Payment status, past due. Amount owed, $3,200.47 plus $85 late fee. Total due immediately, $3,285.47. Cold language, clean formatting, no emotion. Banks are very good at that, removing feeling from consequence. I took a sip of coffee, then replied with a single line. I recommend contacting your lender directly. Sent at 8:19 a.m. At 9:02 a.m., Daniel called again. I let it ring once this time. Dad, he said, skipping any pretense. Did you see the notice? Yes. They added a late fee. I saw that. A sharp exhale. This is getting serious. I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I walked over to the sink, rinsed my cup, set it carefully on the drying rack. Then I said, it was always serious. That's not what I mean, he snapped. They're talking about reporting it to credit agencies if it's not resolved. I imagine they are. Dad, he stopped himself. Started again, slower. We need to fix this. There's nothing to fix, I said. Of course there is, he insisted. You just need to reinstate the payment. Maybe cover this month and next, and we'll figure something out long term. I leaned against the counter. You'll figure something out, I corrected gently. At 9:07 a.m., Isabella's voice cut in again, louder this time. No attempt to soften it. This is ridiculous, she said. We're not playing games here. This is our house. I closed my eyes for a second. Our house, I repeated. Yes, she said. We have a legal obligation to pay that mortgage, and you agreed to help. You can't just back out. I didn't sign the loan, I said. You did. That's not the point. No, I said. It is exactly the point. By 10:30 a.m., the call stopped. For a while, silence again, but not the calm kind from before. This one had tension in it, movement, planning. I recognized it. It's what people do when they realize asking isn't working. They escalate. At 1:15 p.m., I was in the garage. Old habit. When things get complicated, I fix something simple. That day, it was a radio from the 1980s. Dusty, cracked casing, loose wiring. Nothing valuable. Just something that required patience instead of emotion. I had the back panel open, screwdriver in hand, when I heard a car pull into the driveway. Not unusual, but then another. Doors slamming. Voices. I set the screwdriver down slowly. Walked to the small window. Daniel's SUV. And behind it, Isabella's sedan. Both of them getting out at the same time. So, we were doing this in person. At 1:18 p.m., the front door opened before I reached it. They didn't knock. Of course they didn't. Dad, Daniel said as I stepped into the hallway. His face tight, eyes restless. We need to talk. Isabella walked in behind him, already scanning the house like she was evaluating something. I assumed as much, I said. We moved into the kitchen. Same table, same chair, same mortgage statement still lying exactly where I'd left it. Isabella noticed it immediately. Her eyes flicked to the number, then to me. So this is what this is about, she said. No, I replied. This is what it's always been about. They didn't sit at first. People rarely do when they come in with anger. Okay, Daniel said, running a hand through his hair. Let's just be clear. We're in trouble because of this. You're in a situation, I corrected. A situation that can cost us the house, he snapped. I nodded once. Yes. Silence. That wasn't the response he expected. Isabella stepped forward. This isn't just about money, she said, her voice sharp but controlled. This is about responsibility. You made a commitment to help your family. I looked at her, then at Daniel. I fulfilled that commitment, I said, for 4 years. That doesn't mean you can just stop, she shot back. That's exactly what it means. At 1:25 p.m., Daniel finally sat down. Hard. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. Do you even understand what this does to us? He asked, quieter now. Yes, I said. Then how can you be so calm about it? I thought about that for a moment. Because it was a fair question. Because I've already lived through the part where it mattered most, I said. The part where I gave everything without being asked how long I could sustain it. He looked up at me, confused, frustrated, not understanding. Isabella, however, understood something. Maybe not everything, but enough. Her tone changed, subtle but noticeable. Look, she said, pulling out a chair and sitting down slowly. We can work this out. Maybe we adjust the amount. You don't have to cover the full $3,200. Even half would make a difference. Negotiation. Finally, I shook my head. No. Then what do you want? She asked sharper again. An apology? Fine. We're sorry about Thanksgiving. It was a misunderstanding. I met her eyes. No, I said. It wasn't. At 1:31 p.m., the room went quiet. Not empty. Heavy. You meant exactly what you said. I continued. You decided I wasn't necessary. That I could be excluded without consequence. Daniel shifted in his chair. That's not fair. It's accurate. I reached over and tapped the mortgage statement with one finger. This, I said, is consequence. Neither of them spoke. Outside, a car passed slowly down the street. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Ordinary sounds, completely disconnected from the moment sitting in my kitchen. I'm not doing this anymore, I said finally. No raised voice. No anger. Just a statement. Final. At 1:36 p.m., Daniel stood up. This isn't over, he said. I nodded. You're right, I replied. It isn't. Because by then we both understood something important. This was no longer about one missed payment, or even 4 years of them. This was about something much harder to fix, something no bank could refinance, and no late fee could measure. Respect. They didn't call the next day, or the day after, for while it was quiet again, but not the same quiet as before. This one had edges, movement underneath, like ice shifting on a lake just before cracks. I didn't chase them. I went back to my routines. Coffee at 5:45, eggs at 7:10. The radio murmuring about markets and interest rates as if the entire world was one long spreadsheet with consequences delayed but never erased. On December 6th at 9:22 a.m., a letter arrived. Not an email this time. Paper. Thick, official, with a return address from Henderson and Blythe Legal Services. I sat down before opening it. Old instinct. Legal documents deserve a chair. Inside, 3 pages. The language was careful, polished, meant to sound reasonable while carrying a blade. Our clients, Daniel Carter and Isabella Carter, request immediate discussion regarding the abrupt cessation of agreed financial support. Request. I almost smiled. The second page was less polite. Your withdrawal has caused financial strain and potential credit damage. The third page was the point. We believe there exists an implied obligation based on established pattern of payment. Implied obligation. There it was. Not gratitude. Not family. A pattern. Something predictable. Dependable. Something they thought could be enforced. I folded the letter neatly and placed it next to the mortgage statement. Paper next to paper. Story next to story. At 10:15 a.m. I made a call. Not to Daniel. Not to Isabella. To Mark Feldman, attorney. Estate and financial law. I'd met him in 2018 when Helen insisted we update the will. Planning is not pessimism, she'd said. It's respect for reality. Mark answered on the second ring. Mr. Carter, it's been a while. It has, I said. I need to review something. By 2:00 p.m., I was sitting in his office. Clean. Minimal. Smelled faintly of paper and coffee that was better than mine. He read the letter once. Then again. Then leaned back. They don't have a case, he said simply. I didn't think so. You never signed contract. No written agreement. No formal obligation. He tapped the paper lightly. This is pressure, not law. I nodded. That's what it felt like. He studied me for a moment. But, he added, they might escalate anyway. People often do when money is involved. I expect them to. He gave a small, knowing smile. Then the question isn't whether you're right, he said. It's what you want to happen next. That question followed me home, sat with me through dinner. Canned soup, slightly oversalted. Stayed while I washed the dishes. Waited while the house settled into evening silence. What did I want? Not revenge. That's too loud. Too messy. I wanted balance. Something closer to truth. On December 10th, at 11:03 a.m., the second notice arrived. This one wasn't addressed to me, but Daniel forwarded it anyway. Final notice before default action. The numbers had grown. $3,200.47, plus $85 late fee, plus $110 penalty adjustment. Total, $3,395.47. Due immediately, or escalation. This time, he called 5 minutes later. No greeting. They're threatening legal action, he said. Against you, I replied. Dad, this isn't funny. I'm not laughing. There was a pause, then quieter. We might lose the house. I let that sit between us. Real. Yes, I said. At 11:11 a.m., something shifted. Not in me. And can we meet? Daniel asked. Just talk. Properly. I looked at the table. Still there, the statement, the letter, everything laid out like evidence. Come by at 1, I said. At 1:00 p.m., he came alone. No Isabella this time. That in itself said something. He looked different. Not dramatic. Not broken. Just smaller. Like someone who had finally run into a wall that didn't move. We sat at the table. Same places. Same distance. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he exhaled. I didn't realize, he said. I didn't help him. Didn't ask what he meant. He continued anyway. I didn't realize how much you were covering, he said. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know. I nodded once. $359,000, I said. He winced. Hearing it out loud does that. I thought, he started, then stopped. Go on. I thought it was temporary, he said. Then it just became normal. Yes, I said. It did. He looked down at his hands. I didn't think about what it meant for you. No, I agreed. You didn't. At 1:08 p.m., he finally looked up. What do I do now, he asked. There it was. Not a demand. Not an argument. A question. Real this time. I leaned back in my chair. For the first time since November 18th, I considered giving him something again. Not money. Something else. Clarity. You take responsibility, I said. He swallowed. That means talking to the bank. Renegotiating if you can. Cutting expenses if you can't. He nodded slowly. And if we can't make it? I held his gaze. Then you lose the house. The words landed hard, but they didn't shatter anything. They settled, like truth does. We sat in silence for a while after that. Not comfortable, but honest. Finally, he stood up, paused. I'm sorry, he said. I watched him carefully. Not the words, the weight behind them. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. I nodded. I know, I said. He left at 1:22 p.m. No slammed doors this time. No raised voices. Just the quiet sound of a car starting. Driving away. That evening, I sat by the window again. The yard was bare now. Winter had taken everything it needed. Clean lines. Nothing hidden. Inside, the house felt different. Not empty. Not full. Balanced. For the first time in years. The numbers matched the reality. What I gave. What I kept. What remained. I picked up the mortgage statement one last time. Looked at the number. $3,200.47. Then I folded it carefully and placed it back into the metal box. Closed the lid. Set it away. Some debts are financial. Others aren't. The difference is only one of them can be paid with money. And I was finally done confusing the two.